Welcome to the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education Competition Subgroup podcast. I'm Dan Manson, and it's a pleasure to have as my guest today Silas Shen, who currently is a student at Cal Poly Pomona, and before that went to Troy High School, which I believe is the top cybersecurity competition high school in the country. Welcome to the podcast, Silas.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Manson.
Well, my first question, I always want to know how someone got started. How did you become interested in cybersecurity?
Right, so I think for most kids growing up, I've always loved using computers and basically playing around to see what I can do with it. For example, trying to log in without a password, downloading games without an administrator, and basically doing anything that you're not supposed to do. I want to say that the videos of people hacking and doing all these cool advanced things on YouTube really sparked my interest and made me want to do cybersecurity. It started pretty young, and I think once I got into high school, there was basically a program offering this, so I immediately jumped onto that route.
I have heard from several leading cybersecurity professionals that we need to teach kids how to break things, not just how to build things, because you learn more when you're allowed to break things. So I'm glad that that was part of your upbringing, that you were able to explore what you could do on a computer, even if it caused something bad to happen on your computer. And I love the fact now that we have competitions where you have a playing field, you have a safe place to explore. How did you become involved with CyberPatriot at Troy High School?
Right, so at Troy High School, they have a junior ROTC program. So I was part of that program, and within it, there was a sort of sub-team called the Information Security Team. And basically what they were doing, they were teaching students who are interested about cybersecurity in general, and then they also competed in several competitions, and one of that was CyberPatriot. So my first year, I joined and I learned a lot. I made a lot of friends, and I think overall it was just a great experience. The competitions were a lot of fun, especially with a team. And I think moving on through my sophomore, junior, and senior year, just basically being able to take a leadership role as well as compete on the high level is just amazing to me.
Troy High School, the growth in being involved with cyber competitions in general and building a cyber curriculum and the number of students that play in Troy is amazing. I believe this season there were 300 students playing in Troy. Yep. You were there when it really took off. What was it that created to the success of Troy in having a cyber curriculum in the classroom and the extracurricular?
Yeah, so I think for most people who have heard of Troy or know about Troy, they know that Troy is very competitive in everything. The students that go in are going in to get into these really high prestigious Ivy League colleges. So I think that sort of sets the environment for everything else that we compete in. We have a saying that's along the lines of, oh, look, there's a competition. Let's go ahead and win it. Our Science Olympiad has been well known to get first place national rankings. And I think once we started our cyber program and started competing in CyberPatriot, we really wanted to win at nationals. So throughout the years, we would train, and basically once we started to get some national recognition, that's when the students were like, hey, maybe we should do this. And I think that's a really good way to get students involved is, hey, look, if you are part of this program, it has shown that, you know, there are students who are able to make it to the national competition. So, you know, if you put your mind to it and you really stick with it through the 3 or 4 years that you're part of cybersecurity, you're definitely going to get some good payout. And I think coupled with the competitive environment, is just really what made the participation in these events grow.
Now, I know that your teacher, your coach,
Hmm.
Alan Stubblefield, is amazing at putting this program together. But I've been out to Troy at least a half dozen times, and what I see is not so much Mr. Stubblefield teaching, but facilitating. And
Hmm.
I see students teaching students.
Hmm.
Is that one of the keys to the success at Troy, the peer learning approach?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the reasons. Mr. Stubblefield is a great coach. He knows how to bring people together and communicate if there's any issues. But I think where the learning really comes down to it is the students. The students who are in the front teaching should, first of all, be qualified to teach. They should know how to talk to a group of students who want to learn, but also have that technical knowledge to be able to teach. And I think with that, it just creates a little bit more presence of students and the need to sort of research on your own before you present. And I think all this sharing of knowledge really creates a huge uh, database of information that we use for our competitions.
How did you decide to continue with cybersecurity at Cal Poly Pomona? What was it that made you want to go to Cal Poly's? You mentioned that a lot of the students have opportunities to go to Ivy League schools, but you went to a Cal State.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think Cal Poly Pomona, before I even graduated, I've heard of them, and I knew of their involvement in the CCDC competition, which is their collegiate cyber defense competition. And I think that over the summer they had trainings for anyone who wanted to participate in these competitions, and I went and joined over summer, and there's a bunch of really smart people that I met, and I I figured out that they shared the same passion of competitions with me, and I think that really drew me towards deciding to go with Cal Poly Pomona, and all of the competitions that they're part of really solidified it for me.
So your involvement in the high school competitions at Troy motivated you to find a college that was just as involved in college competitions.
Yeah. I learned a lot from competitions, and I just wanted to keep that going on throughout college.
What do you like about cybersecurity competitions?
Mhm. So, cybersecurity competitions, I believe, are one of the best ways to learn about a subject. There's a lot of pressure that goes on during competitions, which really forces you to think fast. And especially since it's a team effort, you learn a lot about how to work with the team, how to talk with one another, how to communicate if there's any issues. Um, and I think everyone loves competitions. Everyone loves that exhilarating feeling of getting announced. And I think that students who have competed in things in high school, whether that be sports or these cyber competitions, I think they're really drawn to participating in them.
Have you found that competitions, involvement in cybersecurity competitions gives you an edge for internships and other opportunities over students that are not involved in competitions?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest takeaway from competitions is, besides learning about the information, is you get to put something on your resume. You get to write what you did, and during interviews, you're able to talk about all that you've learned while competing. And I think a lot of people take kindly to that, and they, especially for those who have heard of CCDC, they know how good of a competition it is and how beneficial it is to students. Um, and yeah, I think overall, a lot more students should be involved. I had, or actually, I have my first internship right now, and I think a big part of it would be my involvement in cybersecurity competitions.
And is your internship now a cybersecurity internship?
Yes.
What would you like to do in the future related to cybersecurity?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think personally, I would want to try out the different fields of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is such a broad subject that no one can really know everything to it. So I think I want to really dip my feet into the different aspects, such as incident response, red teaming, blue teaming, engineering, analyst, all those different things I kind of want to try out. And in the future, hopefully, uh, looking into some sort of management role.
What advice do you have for others getting started? I see a pipeline involving competitions starting at sixth grade, seventh grade now. Is that the time to get started? And what would your advice be both for the students of that age and their parents?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely there's no set age that you can start. I started when I was young, even though I didn't see it then. I see it now that anything you do on the computer is in one way related to security. And I think parents of these students, they shouldn't have to worry about limiting the computer time or whatnot, because anything they're doing is a learning experience. And for the students that are going in, if they really find interest in working with computers, I think they're able to transition that interest into a career in itself, which is cybersecurity.
How do your parents feel about you being involved in cybersecurity and cyber competitions?
They are definitely very supportive. I know coming into high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. My parents didn't tell me to go into a certain routes, and when I chose security, they were very happy that I could um, enjoy what I was doing, as well as go to Cal Poly Pomona, which is fairly local to me.
What was it like going to the CyberPatriot finals?
So I went to CyberPatriot finals in my sophomore year. Um, it was definitely very, very eye-opening. There were a lot of students who were competing at a much higher level, and even though we had made it to the national finals, I don't think we were nearly as prepared as anyone else. And I think it was a really good way to be motivation for our following year, where we place second, and then the following year after that we place first. Just being able to see, okay, there's some tough competition out there. We really need to study and work hard. So
What is the difference between a CyberPatriot team that does okay and a CyberPatriot team that makes it all the way to the finals?
mhm. Right. So the team that makes it to the nationals really does show passion and really takes the initiative to research on their own. Besides collaborating as a team, there's a lot of individual effort that has to go on to make that team really excel in certain areas. And these specific areas really need to be concrete. For example, if your Cisco person isn't as strong as Windows and Linux, then there's that weight pulling you back, and you're not able to make it to nationals because of that. So everyone on the team has to trust each other that their knowledge is on point.
What makes a good CyberPatriot coach?
I think a coach that is supportive and is able to keep the competition energy alive in the room is really what makes a difference. If I were to walk into the room and everyone is not really interested, I would feel not as interested as well. But the way that Miss Schofield makes it such a competitive environment, where you have to be the best if you want to make it, is a really great way a coach can be involved.
What makes a successful team in cyber competition?
I think a successful team would include people who know each other. First of all, I don't think you should be part of a team that you're just part of. Um, I think everyone on the team should be able to trust that one another will put in the work um, that really goes into the preparation of competing. And finally, just individual effort. Everyone needs to pick up their own part to make sure that their skill set is not lacking.
Are there cybersecurity companies that you look at, kind of like which major league team you want to play for? Are there professional teams at these companies that you would like to be part of? What are you looking for?
So I know that there's definitely big name companies. For example, FireEye, or their Mandiant consulting team is very, very popular, and they really recruit the brightest minds. I know a few people who are currently working for them or interning for them, and they're just really on top of their game. So I think that's one of the big name companies that people want to go and try to get in, work for.
Troy High School has a strong internship program. I believe you have a requirement to do a certain number of hours as an internship. Were you able in high school to get an internship that related to cybersecurity?
Yeah, so in high school, junior year, our Troy Tech program required every student to have an internship, and I was fortunate to get an internship at Cal State Fullerton in their Department of Computer Science, doing research on cybersecurity trends that happen often in business.
How do you think your competitions are going to go at Cal Poly? Do you have the same goal that you had at Troy?
Yeah, so last year we were not able to make it to nationals, and I think one of the reasons why is we weren't really prepared for um, these curveballs that were thrown at us, and we had been preparing for one way and one competition scenario, and I think this year there's going to be a little bit shift in that where we teach students the fundamentals and the basic system administration before we move on to security. And I think once we have more experience in how the competitions are like, then we're able to, hopefully win.
I have to ask this question because it just has stuck with me for 12 years since I saw my first cyber competition.
Hmm.
Do you feel like you're playing a sport?
Yeah, I think I definitely feel like there is the competitiveness that you see in sports, and it's really mirrored in cybersecurity competitions. The ability to play with the team and not only rely on yourself, but rely on other people to take leadership in times is really what mimics the same level of I'd say a sport.
When I was teaching at Cal Poly Pomona, especially the last several years I was there, I would tell students that the most we give you in the classroom to go in to the cybersecurity field is 50%. And there's another 50% that you have to do on your own outside the classroom: club involvement, competition involvement, internships, self-study. Do you find that that 50-50 rule applies to you?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of things that I have learned from competitions that I don't think I would have learned in the classrooms, and I think vice versa. The classrooms really set a little foundation for you, and they point you towards the right direction. But other than that, it's up to the student to be involved in the various tasks that you just described.
Silas, this has been a great interview. I really appreciate your time. I'm really glad that you are at Cal Poly. I still have a soft spot for them, and I wish you the best.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Manson.
This has been the NICE Competitions Subgroup podcast.